Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. The appointed time of the House Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee has come and gone, so therefore we're going to start. I call this meeting to order. I'm going to ask Danny Mathis if he would to lead us in an invocation.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for today. We just ask you to bless everyone that is here. Father, help us to do the right thing for Georgia and the decisions we make here today. For it's in your Son's name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, I'm going to go down this list here. My good friend and fellow chairman over in the Senate, I'm going to ask that he would come up. Chairman Albers, if you'll come up. You've got a couple of bills you're presenting today, is that right?
Sir, I've got Senate Bill 417.
Senate Bill 417.
I believe so, and then I think you may have had a committee sub to Senate Bill 97 that
yes.
I'm happy to stay for as well.
Yes,
if you'd like,
you choose whichever one you want to go first.
Okay, I don't have a current copy of 97 if one of your folks could grab you one, but I would just like to start with 417 if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Oh, great.
So we're going to start off with Senate Bill 417.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and distinguished members of the House Public Safety Committee. It is an honor of the great work we get to do together. This is the annual department bill for the Insurance and Safety Fire Commissioner. I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to highlight the incredible work that Commissioner John King and his team have been doing over the last several years. The work you see today really comes from Chief Pritchard and our Fire Marshal's office in making sure we're keeping people safe, hence why we're here today. So this cleanup bill simply addresses a couple of areas, and they are fireworks safety, which is how we license them and permit them and make sure that they are not being stored or shot off next to something that's going to cause a bigger problem, although we all do very much like fireworks in this legislative body. Also to elevators and boilers. You've seen some elevator accidents over the last several years. This allows us to be more active in the way that we do the reporting of accidents and making sure we're streamlining that process for that and for boilers. It also has public employee hazardous protection. There's amendments to Title 45 that clarify the responsibilities. It's called MSDS, which are the safety data sheets. Make sure we have the updated terminology to align with all the other standards out there. I could go section by section through this bill, but I believe it's fairly straightforward, and I would yield unless you want me to go item by item, Mr. Chairman.
No, I looked over this bill when it was brought to me, and it's pretty much a good department bill to help streamline the process and clean up some things we needed to clean up. Any questions from the members of the committee? Let's see, number 27. That's going to be
me.
Representative Vance.
First, thank you for bringing this bill. Commissioner King came and visited with me along with Mr. Pritchett the other day. They gave great talking points. This is a wonderful bill that will streamline everything and make it a lot more 21st century, and I really appreciate it. And Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion at the proper time.
Okay. Any other discussion about this bill? Any other discussion? Okay. All right. Yes. Again, Chairman Albers, thank you for bringing this, and also kudos to Commissioner King for the great, outstanding job that he's doing in his role, and all of the staff. It's been a pleasure working with you this year and in previous years. So we have a motion to do pass Senate Bill 417, LC 394339S. Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up is Senate Bill 97. And when we're done, I'm going to ask for your John Hancock, if I could, for this rule sheet.
Absolutely.
Senate Bill 97, appreciate the great work that you have done, as well as many others, as we've continually trying to update and make sure that our roads are safe and the systems that we use, whether they be automated or our officers are operating as intended as we change the law. So this bill does a couple of things. It adds something that we passed last year that didn't make it through the finals, called ghost plates. And ghost plates are people who obfuscate their license plate, and that can be done a couple of different ways. You've seen them before where maybe they got a really dark tinting on them, or some use a special chemical or spray, so when you try to take a picture or see it, it actually just completely whites or blurs that out completely. This is an ongoing problem. There are others that have contraptions and devices that will literally come up and hide the plate. This is obviously an ongoing challenge. We've done a great work as a General Assembly by the great work of the House and the Senate to help curb things such as drag racing and other challenges we've seen. So that's a critical part to make sure we continue with that process. And the other part is how we operate our cameras in school zones. If you think about when we originally had that legislation come through the General Assembly, there was I believe a little bit of confusion that was set forth during that time, Mr. Chairman, and this seeks to clean that up by recognizing the consistency, because what we don't want to have is any different city or county having it different somewhere else. I think we confuse drivers. And we create a system that's not accurate for everyone involved. So in doing that, this bill addresses several different things. It makes sure that the warning signs are all the same. They're going to be in the same format, the same flashing lights. It'll be done when they're flashing during the times that are allowed for that. It will make sure that the school zone law for that zone to make sure, again, that they are consistent. It makes sure that these are not being used necessarily for a revenue source, and that whether the fines are criminal or civil, they fall under the same percentage for what can be the annual agency budget. In this case, it moves it from 35 to 30%. It also brings the timeline streamlined for schools an hour before and an hour after to make sure they're not running all day, every day, as we've had a few instances for. And I believe the general cleanup of the bill, again, just lays out what most people hope to think that they are, and it doesn't take away the ability for locals to do that, but it does separate the school out of that, because if you think about where the street is in front of a school, well, that street is monitored by either the local city police, county sheriff, and/or any one of our state law enforcement agencies. The school has nothing to do with the street in front of them, and we needed to separate those two out there to make sure that there wasn't one trying to lord over the other, and that just made good common sense. Because if there is not something in place, well, who maintains that street? Will certainly be our local state law enforcement. That's the bill pretty much in its entirety, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the great work you have done and led on this, as well as other members of the House, and glad to ask any questions.
Okay. Representative Petrie.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will tell you, I like this measure. I was looking at it before and going through it again, and I'll tell you, really appreciate this, especially when you get to the latter section, 6, 7, 8. You're dealing with these with our school zone and our cameras in our school zone. It's been a big issue at home. They've been misused. They have been misused by local law enforcement. Certainly the mindset of a lot of my constituents that they have been. And so I think we want to continue to have those available in the interest of protecting our most vulnerable children, but we have to make sure they do it within the limits that we kind of anticipated early on when we passed this measure. And so I appreciate this very much. Thank you for your good work.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the great work that you have done on other bills that we're partnering together on.
Okay, thank you. Number 26, Representative Lumsden.
Yes. Thank you for the bill. I just wanted to clarify that the time frames which the cameras can operate: an hour before school starts, an hour after school ends, but it is not running during the day, just that hour time frame in the morning, that hour time frame in the afternoon. Is that
Correct, except for in the afternoon. If I can make one update there, my apologies. It's in the morning, an hour. In the evening, it's an hour before and 2 hours after for sports and clubs in order to complete in the afternoon.
It's not running during the day between those times in the morning and the times in the afternoon. The time
Correct.
during the day, it's not running.
Exactly what this seeks to address and to fix.
And also super speeders, what we call super speeders, if you're caught in violation of of that super speeder lower time, that does not count toward the 30% in local government.
Correct, yes. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you.
All right, number 17, that's going to be Representative Evans.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chairman. I do want to make sure I fully understand the school busing, because that actually has not been implemented into CAB yet, because they, so I am pleased to know, I mean, I'm hoping that this will allow them to start using this. But one of the questions in DeKalb is like, where does the money go? Does the money go to the police department of the county, or if like in DeKalb we have our own school police, and so I guess they were kind of hoping that the money would come to the schools instead of to the county. But what does this say where the money goes?
So this takes the schools out of the equation. The schools really should not have any sway into this. If you think about it, the streets are not maintained by the schools. The streets are maintained by your local city and or county government.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that have to patrol. Those are the ones that if they were not to do this, they might be out there running radar. So these funds go back to the local governing authority, not the schools.
Okay, what would be the desire of the, okay. Motion is made and motion made do pass and a second on Senate Bill 97, LC 394383S, a substitute to Senate Bill 97. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to also say that this will be our last meeting together here in the Public Safety Committee. I've enjoyed working with you during my tenure as chairman of this committee. It's been a pleasure and an honor, and I know that as I depart, public safety will still be in good hands with you over there in the Senate. So thank you for your friendship and your mentorship, if you will.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say this. You will always be family here, and we are going to continue to call on you to ask for your wisdom. Your public service has been extraordinary, and I'm going to do my level best, try and convince you to do this again sometime in the future. God bless you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, let's call up Senator Randy Robertson on Senate Bill 37.
I thought they were going to hug.
What? I didn't catch that. What
I
was that?
said I thought I was gonna wait. I thought y'all were gonna hug.
Oh, well.
So I just
Well, you tried to kiss me out in the hall, so I think he was a little jealous.
I do want to point out he's a firefighter.
I got you. Oh, Lord. All right, Senator, go ahead with your
Thank you,
bill.
Mr. Chairman, and I do want to tell y'all all look great today. If Chairman Albers did not point that out, I do want to let all of you know that. You look marvelous. But this is Senate Bill 37. It has been around for a couple of years. It started out as a sheriff's qualification bill, and that's what it continues to be with a few add-ons, I do believe. And I trust you, Mr. Chairman. Anything I leave out related to that you'd chime in. We discussed a little bit about that as far as the sheriffs and the courts. But basically what this legislation does is it requires that any individual in the state of Georgia who, at the time of qualifying as a candidate for the office of sheriff, is a certified peace officer as defined in Chapter 8, Title 35, and is good standing with the Georgia Peace Officers Standards and Training Council. Also opens up the opportunity for any retired federal law enforcement officer.
What LC are you working off of?
I'm working off LC 393939S.
No, sir.
Okay, that's
You got the wrong one.
I got the latest version.
Okay.
Is what I
I'm sorry.
had.
So what?
So this is going to
No.
take a whole new.
No. We threw your bill away.
Okay, so I know I can't vote against it, but if anybody wants to testify to it, I'd appreciate it.
Let me explain your bill to you, okay? Senate
Now, this
bill.
isn't agree-disagree, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah, we're not there yet. Okay.
This is the LC 394391S.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So basically what we're doing in your bill
Yes, sir.
is we are going to be allowing the sheriffs to have another court supplement, so they'll get a supplement for 2 courts.
Right.
Okay, and down in section 2, a little thing that I put together here, based on numerous conversations with other members of our deliberative body, and some of the things I've experienced on some of the Georgia roadways. We put in here in section 2, except when responding to an emergency call or when it's in pursuit of an actual or suspected violator of the law, it shall be unlawful for an operator of a law enforcement vehicle to use solid, flashing, or revolving blue lights outside the jurisdiction of his or her agency. That came about over the last several years as I've been traveling into the Capitol. We've had, I've experienced, when you look up in the rearview mirror, there's an illuminated blue light behind me. And I've always been trained, when you see a blue light, you get over, because there is someone that is going to an emergency, and I was slinging over in the other lane, getting out of the way, and all it would be a jurisdiction who was going, somebody who was in another jurisdiction going to work, didn't have the light flashing, it was just a blue illuminated light. And they're traveling down the road, and it's very confusing for people who respect the law and have a tremendous amount of respect for what law enforcement does. Now, this in no way precludes any public service personnel from rendering aid or responding to a situation. It just says you're not going to be cruising down the road outside your jurisdiction with your blue light on. That was something I felt was very important to the integrity of the peace officers. So that was section 2, and then down a little ways further on section 3, I'd like to allow Representative Vance, if he would, to speak to that portion. It was a jailer's piece of legislation that he had proposed and passed out of this committee. So this time I recognize Representative Vance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this section does is give jailers who are post-certified as jailers the right to take people into custody that turn themselves in, either by virtue of a warrant or a complaint, that jailer could take custody of those people and get that process started rather than having to call a deputy in off the road or officer in off the road. This also will allow those jailers to effectuate arrests for crimes occurring within the guard lines of the jail. And that's the perimeter, the perimeter of the jail and everything within that, and only within that area. So this will allow sheriff's departments in Georgia that have county, all of them have county jails, to do those things and effectively use the road deputies out on the road answering calls. This is supported by the Sheriff's Association, and heard nothing but positive things about it. It unanimously passed out of this committee, and it unanimously passed in the House. It got waylaid a little bit down the road, but we've been able to work it back in here and do it this way, and we hope you're agreeable with that.
What would be your definition of a jailer, Representative Vance?
A jailer is someone who's, after they are hired as a jailer, they have to go to the academy for two weeks and become certified as jailers within 6 months of their employment date. They are given training to do these kinds of things, and Senator Robertson, to me, it just makes common sense. If you've got somebody there that's going to actually take custody of the prisoner anyway at some juncture, that they can do it first rather than having to call a deputy in off the road to effectuate that arrest.
Okay, and within the guard line, I do understand the guard lines extends beyond the actual physical jail and encompasses the curtilage around the jail, but you do understand that jailers are unarmed employees of the sheriff's office, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. But many jails, most jails have an outside recreation area, and we wanted to include that as well. So that's the reason we did the curtilage part.
That's true.
I think the Sheriff's Association was good with that bill, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That always makes me suspicious.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll recognize you at the appropriate time, Mr. Norris. I'm sorry. My board's lighting up here. Let's see, number 18, Representative Werkheiser.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Wanted to turn back to Section 2. Appreciate you putting that in there. We went over that quickly, but we didn't emphasize it if you're within your jurisdiction,
Yes.
because I know, like, the place that I rent when I'm downtown, I'm right in the middle of Georgia State, and there's police officers, both the city of Atlanta and Georgia State. They ride around not with their flashing light, but just a solid blue light, just to let people know there's a police presence. So I appreciate that. But more importantly, I wanted to thank you for helping the previous bill with the street camera that seemed to take quite a while for the chamber across the way to see how good a piece of legislation that was.
Right.
So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Number 14 is Representative Saines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you looking at the first part, the Section 2 policy starting on line 26. I just wanted to clarify, and Legislative Council helped me, but I want to make sure for the members of public listening that it is already a violation of state law to use your solid and revolving lights without being in code, without running a code. This is purely addressing the solid lines correct outside of jurisdictions like some departments do to highlight police presence at night, this area being
And
one.
I want to make it very clear, if you work for a police chief or a sheriff that's okay with you riding around in your jurisdiction with your blue light on, that's fine. But don't confuse the rest of us who are trying to obey the law. Thank you. Number 29, that's going to be Representative Lott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for bringing this legislation. I would like to say on record that
Hang on just a second, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think the qualifications piece that has somehow eluded your piece of paper,
Yes, ma'am.
I think that was an excellent idea, and I'd just like to add that into the
Absolutely.
speech, that I'm sorry that your original LC number was altered.
Oh, thank you, and I'm going to miss you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and I just want to state too that I have done all I know to do for the sheriff's qualification bill. It passes this committee and it's passed this committee and it's set in rules. I don't know what to do to make that happen, and I look forward to the day when you can get that over the finish line.
I think what has to happen is what always has to happen many times. I think a tragedy has to happen, and once that occurs and everybody's running around trying to put the fire out, they'll realize there was an opportunity to fix that problem years ahead, and we
Absolutely.
just missed it.
And if I thought we could tee it up here and get it back over, I would
Yes,
do
sir.
that sooner.
And I appreciate that, Chairman.
Yes, thank you. Let's see, number 24, Representative Petrie.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, my comment was just made by Representative Lott. So I will ask this, though. Are the sheriffs okay, Sheriff's Association, I know y'all are going to speak in a moment, with what is currently in this measure? All of these provisions, maybe y'all can, if they can, you can speak to that in a
Yes.
moment if necessary. But I was asking about the posture of what was in the original
Okay.
bill, as was Representative Lott.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Chairman Petrie, excuse me, Terry Norris with the Georgia Sheriff's Association. I know every one of you close now, I know full names, children's date of birth. I've been before this committee many times, and I want to go ahead and say, first of all, thank you. This committee's been really, really good to the sheriffs. In terms of the sheriff's qualifications piece, you all have passed it out 3 times. In terms of the court supplement, which is included in this bill, you've passed it out 3 times. In terms of the arrest authority for jailers, you've passed it out 2 or 3 times. So thank you all for this, Chairman. Just this year, yes, sir, just this year. So I feel like I'm a ex officio member. I know nobody said that but me. But I do want to thank this committee for the work it's done. To answer Chairman Petrie's call there, yes, we're supportive of the bill. The blue light part, of course, was added. That's not our provision. And we operated on the assumption that sheriffs have statewide authority because they're created in the state constitution. So, yes, we do. Thank you again. And thank you, Randy. I'm glad you have such confidence in the Georgia Sheriff's Association. Next time you come talk to us, I'll make sure when I introduce you, I'll let them know how much you appreciate them.
I really don't come that often, but I appreciate it.
Well, that might be true from now on. I'm kidding, Randy. Thank you all
I
very
know you
much.
are.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Terry, appreciate you. All right, so what would be the, okay. Motion is made and seconded to do pass, the substitute to Senate Bill 37, working off LC 394391S. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Okay, thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll see you guys in rules. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right, let's see here. Let's call Senate Bill 406. You're not.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're not
Apologize
Senator
for that.
Dixon. You're not Senator Dixon, are you?
Sir?
You're not Senator Clinton
No, sir.
Dixon.
He's, I think, doing the same thing I'm doing right now. I can't be in two places at one time.
All
So
right.
I'm your substitute. Hopefully you treat your subs well. If you know where I'm going.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate the subcommittee that saw this. Basically, this is a school mapping bill. We're trying to standardize the maps across the state of Georgia. There's approximately 20 other states have done this already. But as a former school principal, superintendent, CEO of College Career Academy, we found out real quick how important a standardized map would be. Unfortunately, too many times, educators like me will change a hallway, will change a history hallway and language arts hallway and kind of refer to the names instead of really going by a true map, or refer to as Miss Jones Hall or something like that. Or come up with acronyms for doorways or emergency exits, and we probably shouldn't do that, or as educators, but at times we do that. And a lot of times we change the map after school starts, and then you send it in, and nothing's updated in a timely manner. So what we're trying to do with this bill is standardize the maps, do it more on a military type basis where it's based on grids, aerial overview as well, have the maps available to 911 personnel, first responders, so everybody's on the same page. Come up with a set of standards that the different vendors in the state of Georgia would go by, or the school system themselves if they want to create their own map. Approximately right now, there's about 10 different vendors with these type standards that produce these maps for school systems as we speak in the state of Georgia. So it's not a standalone where it's just a one-party vendor that would serve the whole state. You have some large school systems now, such as Atlanta Public Schools, Gwinnett, Hall, that are currently doing this. Approximate cost is about $3,500 per school. That maps it out directly. There's a map in your packet, if you saw, basically that shows you the type map that what it would look like. First responder could say command post would be set up in a certain type grid like G5 or something like that, or let's meet at the exit door. I can't read them. I'm blind as a bat, but you'd read the coordinate along with it, the grid, so you know exactly where to meet at instead of referring to names or hoping you've got a blueprint of the school in your car. That's what's hard in this case. Right now, we're using a lot of times on print versions, blueprints that your normal first responder doesn't have access to right away. So that, again, you're going to save time when you have a standard map, and you can pull up in your car computer, or you can pull it up if you've already got it. Your 911 system can send it out to everybody, software-wise.
If you would just suspend just 1 second. We've
Yes,
got a
sir.
handout here we need to get out to the members of the committee.
Okay.
You made reference to that. We want to get that to everybody.
Yes, sir. If you look at that map, there's 2 pages. One's your aerial view of the layout. The second page is the surrounding area as well. That's where you'd like tell everybody what grid you're at, where you want to set up a command post, make sure you have certain areas blocked, or public access meeting point for parents, things like that. Your first page is more your emergency type situation where you're going to be engaged, and you have your different grids, your X and Y grids there that could easily tell everybody where to report to at that time. If you notice, this map is facing north, and that's what we're standardizing to, just like the military, where it's facing north, it's facing one direction. That's the nuts and bolts of it. There's some more stuff in there, of course. The biggest thing, this is exempt from an open records request. So it'd be up to the school system or 911 if they try to give this out to the general public. This is for the basically 911, first responders, and the school system police or sheriff's department, county police that's in charge of security of the school. And I'll be glad to answer any questions. If there's any technical questions I can't answer, I do have Alex Carney behind me who can answer those technical questions, and I'll be glad to call him up as needed, or if you just want him to come up as well. Either way.
Got a couple of questions from members of the committee.
Yes, sir.
Let's see. Representative Sainz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had originally wanted clarification on on it, making sure it was exempt from open records, and I know it's probably not the appropriate time, but I would hope that no school system gave this out as a to the general public. Are you aware if school? I don't know if we were able to restrict that, but
that could be a future bill or an amendment, because I have seen on websites before where you do have a layout of the school on the website.
We are able to restrict that now currently.
Is that restricted now?
I believe, isn't that correct, Director Stoller?
It is in all the school safety plans. Any
Great.
maps or anything that's given out is restricted from public.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Chair, maybe a question to pose to the committee. If that is something we do at the school safety plans, I'd like to possibly offer a friendly amendment to not just exempt it from open records, but restrict this map from being available to the public.
We will recognize you at the appropriate time, Representative.
Thank you.
Representative Evans.
Yes, thank you for bringing this bill. And I just wanted to confirm, this map is for the school systems, and then does it also go to local law enforcement and to GMA? Like, who all does this map
Correct,
go
and
to?
it all has to. It'll be the same map distributed. 911, first responders. GMA would have to approve it, of course. They're the end player of this game. Not a game. In this business, basically, your school's required to file a safety plan every year. They'll file it. Your school system police or sheriff's department, county police, who's ever in charge of the school, will first approve it. After the school safety team approves it, then it goes to the police department or agency that's in charge of it. Then GMA, they'll already have a good set of plans. Usually, they will walk through a school themselves minimally once every 4 years. It could be more. We can ask Director Stallings about that, but they are engaged in the entire process, and they do check out to make sure everything's accurate, and they do expect us or school people to update their maps and let them know on a timely basis through their school police agency.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go with Representative Vance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I work for a school system when I'm not up here. And I think this is an excellent bill, and really one very important way. A lot of law enforcement agencies have differing computer systems, programs that are running their software. This will be custom to their particular kind of software that they're using. And I think that is wonderful because it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's pretty custom-made when the school agrees to take this on. With GMA and the school safety plans, they have people that come around at your request every year and do school assessments, which are wonderful. And they do a wonderful job to help you identify areas which could feed into this mapping process and make your school safer. So I really appreciate you bringing this bill, and I think it's a good thing for education in Georgia.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, Representative Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too agree this is very important and it's a very good idea and it should be kept out of the public hands. The only thing I would add is there are some schools that have developmentally disabled, and I think it would be a good idea to be able to identify, and it doesn't have to be on the map, but it should be noted to law enforcement when there are those with special needs that may take extra time or need extra help getting in and out. The same thing with the schools where they're very young, the pre-K and things like that. It's a great idea to have it, but there needs to be notations for those with special needs.
That's a good point. It's usually in the safety plan as well. Gina's done a good job of laying out a template for everybody, and they'll have meeting points, and they'll have identify where your special needs are, especially the severe, profound, who can't help themselves, or who couldn't get out on their own.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Lott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a part of the subcommittee that heard this as well, and I just wanted to say at the appropriate time.
Okay, we'll recognize you. Representative Cummings.
Thank you. I want to thank you for bringing this bill, and I think it's very appropriate and very important. I was at a career day today, earlier this morning, with an elementary school, 10 to 11 years old, and I was a little surprised. The two things that they were concerned with: social media, they don't like it, and their safety. So thank you very much for bringing this.
Thank you.
Representative Saines.
Thank you. I had a question on the mapping data. I just want to understand it fully. Is this mapping data, I want to use the term where school mapping data, fully owned by the school, the district, or is there any point that this data could be purchased or be in ownership by the vendor that's creating it?
We'll have to ask Alex to step up. From my understanding, it's owned by the school. It's their data, and they have control over that data. Anytime they can get away from that contract and still own their current data.
Okay. We'll hear from him in just a few minutes.
Okay, that's my understanding.
Hear from him in just a few minutes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's cleared off the board at this time. We had this bill in subcommittee, and there were some changes that we asked to be made.
We added the residential treatment amendment that Representative Workhauser asked to add to it.
Okay.
Area we did residential facilities. We added that to it as well.
Yes, it's on line 30, 29 or 30. Yeah. On line 30. Okay. We don't have a sign-up sheet, but anyone who would like to speak to this bill, I know that Director Stallings is here, and he has a few things that he would like to speak about. He approached me in my office before the meeting, so Director Stallings, if you want to come up to the podium, we'll recognize you.
Thank you, sir, for allowing me to speak for just a second. We had a couple things that we did point out that I just want to bring to the committee's attention, maybe for conversation piece. We had asked for one amendment in here, and it discussed updating of the school map within 3 days of notification. Why that was important to us is if we're going to have notifications and we want the most current information available, it wasn't that we expect the school to notify us within 3 days of them making a change, but once the technology piece was notified of a change, they needed to be able to redistribute, easy for me to say, the technology and the map out to those first responders, because as we discussed in the subcommittee, not all our first responders have mobile devices issued, so we can't send those mobile devices regularly, so we have to get those updates quickly and turn around. In a lot of cases, we talked about maps. I would also just make a point about the map, and I know we've discussed the XY grid pattern. I like the due north, but focusing so much on the military, I served very proudly the state of Georgia as a state trooper for a number of years, but I do not have a military background. And so there was no part of our education in trooper school where we discussed that. But in a heightened situation, as we all know, we fall back on what we were trained to do. Our 911 dispatchers have not gone through an XY grid. A lot of those things. And in our school safety plans, we use very plain English, and I think it's extremely important that as we notate these things, we keep consistency across all our maps and across all our platforms, because as we know, when the gunfire is sounding, for those that have had that unfortunate experience, you lean on your training. I was told this one time, and I'll leave it for the committee. You never rise to your level of expectation. You fall to your level of preparation. And what that we have trained on, and that all our first responders and our first responder community, whether it be fire, EMS, or law enforcement, they need a consistent platform across that. So I would just ask that in that we look at that and ensure that our 911 community is able to do that. I would think that, you know, those couple changes, we understand, we appreciate the work, the back and forth conversations with the representative and senator on some of our concerns of this bill. Obviously, school mapping is extremely important. That's why we do include it now in our school safety plans. And so I would just ask that those two conversation pieces be discussed, sir.
Okay. So we want to add that, that's a request from your agency to have a 3-day turnaround time.
Yes, sir. From the technology, not the school to them. We understand that they'll make a change and it takes a little while to get that update. But once that update hits that technology piece, the piece that we're paying for, the piece that we're contracted with to get that information back out, there's a lot of emergency responders. As you've seen, if you've not heard the testimony of the Nashville police officers, the police officer, the trigger man, that was not even his assigned area. He had no business being in there that day. He just happened to be there and hear a call go out. If you've not heard his interview, it's a great interview. He's never been in there. He wasn't from that area. He did not know any of those officers. And so it's important that if we're going to have a technology piece that we're getting out to our first responders, it gets out as quickly as possible. And as we discussed, our rural parts of Georgia don't have those mobile devices. We discussed putting it in maps, getting those paper copies in their hands. I think it just turns into the faster we can get it back out, the better off we are.
And the second piece that you're asking for there.
And I didn't get the current copy of the LC, so I think it was in there. It was about the form of the map, contain the XY coordinates and have the ability for the aerial image and interactive capabilities, kind of similar to how our 911 communities operate now. Thank you, sir.
Yes, okay.
Looking at the...
Okay. If you want to take a moment, and I'll come back to you.
Yes, sir. 34, be overlaid on an aerial image, and that contain the grid with X and Y coordinates. That would be the only map in state government that contains that grid that someone would be operating off of. So there would be no continuity of operations regardless of what that layout would be.
So maybe remove that piece?
Yes, sir. Remove that piece from it and then give the ability. We would want the technology to be more flexible in the 911 maps, the ability to manipulate the map a little bit, look at it from different angles. I understand it needs to be laid out due north, but if you're familiar with it and you're walking folks in lefts and rights, north and south isn't going to cut it on left and rights.
I understand.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But that's our changes.
Okay, thank you. All right, come back to that. Anyone else here that would like to speak to Senate Bill 406? If you'd please come up to the podium. It's a committee day, so brevity will be your friend and ally here today.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Alex Carney. I'm a former Marine Special Operations Officer. I have zero background in public safety, admittedly. However, I have spent probably a few hundred days and nights of my life using maps to push people around the battlefield under a lot of stress. And I've also probably observed maybe 300 or 400 active shooter drills watching public safety utilize maps. So I come at it from that perspective. When I look at a map, I look at it, if I was at the hood of that car trying to understand radio traffic from a giant building I'd never been in before, would the map that I look at, would I be able to look at it in a couple seconds and actually utilize it to make a decision and navigate or bring people together? So that's the perspective I come at when I look at school maps. What I want to emphasize, and I want to comment on a couple of things, that a grid is no more than a reference point. So any map you look at, most maps you look at, they're oriented north. They have lat longitude on it, which is a grid. What I quickly realized when we started doing mapping of a lot of schools, that you couldn't expect a public safety officer under stress to use lat longitude. And to be honest, you can't expect a Marine under stress to use something like that either. So we realized that when you needed to communicate about a place that didn't have a reference point, so if I wanted to talk about a parking lot that didn't have a name, or I wanted to talk about a portion of an athletic field that didn't have a name that wasn't readily available, or I wanted to talk about where I wanted someone to park a car, and there wasn't a label associated with it, the only way to vector someone in really quickly to that location was to use an X and Y grid. So, I'm not sure how many military special ops members we have on the committee or law enforcement officers, but if I asked you to look at the map that's in front of you right now, and I told you that north was up on the map, and imagine you were an ambulance driver, and I asked you to park your vehicle or your ambulance on the northeast side of the building, and I asked you to park your vehicle in grid square G2, so go across the top to the letter G, down to the letter 2, park your ambulance there, go to door 4, because that's the door where there is a keypad access or a fob access, come south down the red hallway, and turn right on the purple hallway, and meet me at the wrestling room. You can all probably follow exactly what I'm talking about, and you've never been to the school before, nor have many of you gotten special training on how to use a map. So what I've realized in a few thousand repetitions of watching people use maps, it has to be simple. Any technology, when it comes to people communicating under stress, has to be really simple. It can't take much training, or else someone's not really going to use it under stress, but they need to be able to look at it intuitively and understand how to communicate off of it. And that's what this bill accomplishes. You kind of set a standard across the state of how school maps should look. And there are a lot of schools in the state of Georgia that have maps that are up to the standard, from Gwinnett to Savannah Chatham to Clark to Hall to Stevens County to Chattahoochee. So there's a number of counties, whether they're urban or rural. At the end of the day, you're creating one single kind of common operating picture or one accurate map that anybody can look at. It doesn't matter if you're a school administrator or a 911 operator, or a police sergeant running out of your vehicle. You can take a look at this map under a lot of stress, use it to make a decision, and then get back to what you're doing. So I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have on that. Thank you.
Good. See, Representative Saints.
Thank you, and thank you for your time and your service. I understand in terms of this system, it might be for ease for planning purposes, for distinctifying areas that you're not familiar with. I've been a school resource deputy, and I understand the general principles of what we're asking our law enforcement to do when they're responding to, let's say, an active shooter. And my concern is, if this isn't correlated to the other maps that they're looking at, the other methods, if we're creating a completely separate mapping model for schools that they can't revert back to their training, it isn't intuitive from what I'm seeing for someone to execute the directions. There is no blue hallway for them to go look for, and that's I want to echo. I still don't. The concerns that our Homeland Security Department brought up about the inconsistency with this map versus others is still present to me based on the testimony.
Yes, sir. And I think I'd point out that across the state of Georgia, school maps are completely inconsistent. So a lot of times what you get from an architect is a map that's not oriented a standard direction. It's abstract. It doesn't have a common sense of labeling on it. So you're looking at an abstract drawing that has no standards associated with it. Schools change year to year. I think, the average age of schools in Georgia is probably at least 30 years old, if not older. So when you have layers and layers of these changes happening over years and years, essentially what you have at the end of the day is a map that's very difficult to communicate off of, which is half the problem. The other half of the problem is accessibility. Obviously in Georgia, to the director's comments, people have very different technology capabilities, whether you're in a rural county or in an urban county. At the end of the day, there is not a one-size-fits-all solution. You need to make sure anybody who's making a map can incorporate those maps into those systems. So thank you. Any other questions?
Okay. Any other questions at this time? Anyone else? Anyone else wish to speak about this bill at this time? Okay.
Thank you.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Jeremy Collins. So if we were to remove the reference to the grid in the bill, then school systems could still do the grid. Is that right?
That's the way I understand it, yes.
Mm-hmm. I do think that he has this is a big decision. I think, it makes me just think about what's the quality of all our maps, so I want to follow the will of the committee to pass this, but
Representative Townsend, you have any comments?
Yes, sir, thanks. Appreciate everybody's comments thus far. Just as an ex-school person, I think it's important to get to a standardized map in the state of Georgia. It requires extra training or whatever else. I think we need to do that. I think there's an issue now in the state of Georgia if we don't have a standardized map, and we don't. And I think if we look on some websites, even though we're not supposed to post it on the website, I bet you some school systems still do. They did 3 years ago before I retired. So in that sense, I think it's important to come up with a standardized map. Is this the model we like? If it is, then we run with it. If it's not, then we don't include it. I think that's what you have to consider as a committee, because we are deciding for the state of Georgia if that's the direction we want to go. And in the bill right now, it says if money is available, of course. Now, we have the school safety grants every year. They should be able to use that money for it. But that's local control where they decide whether they want to use it or not. So we have to decide as a committee, or you have to decide as a committee, is this a good direction to go in? Standardized maps. Does that make sense? To me, it's common sense, but does that make sense to have a standardized map?
Okay. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak to this bill at this time? If you'd please come forward to the podium, state your name.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Alicia Rucker-Wright, and I serve as the Deputy Executive Director for the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority, which is tasked with facilitating effective and efficient operation of 911 throughout the state. So I serve as our Deputy Director, but prior to accepting my position, I served as the 911 operator. And I can speak to you with experience in saying any time that we have responders running lights and sirens to an emergency incident, the number one thing a 911 operator is going to hear is, can you provide me additional information? And that is a reasonable response, as our responders are running code to a school shooting, and they should solely be focused on collecting information and getting there. So having mapping data would be absolutely invaluable to 911, but I would urge all of you to consider, as a 911 operator, we are not going to be asked for an XY coordinate. They're going to be saying, I'm from Dawson County, so they would be saying, Dawson, I'm going to be making entry at the front of the high school. Can you tell me where I need to go? And I'm going to be responding, you need to go to the left hallway, and it's the 4th classroom on the right. So instead of providing an XY coordinate, which would actually further complicate the situation, or trying to give them a grid location, being able to direct them to a classroom and walk them through is important. I know it seems like, why would you want to remove an aerial image that would provide you more awareness? But when you're trying to count the number of classrooms, oftentimes it's better to remove an aerial image so that you can see the schematic of the building as opposed to all of the other things that's been photographed. It's not uncommon in 911 when we're trying to locate a caller for us to currently remove an aerial image, so that's a technology that is already in place. I would also say, too, that our 911 system is desperately in need of being upgraded. So that would be a wider conversation that I would encourage everyone to engage in, is how will this information integrate into an upgraded system in the future? So that's just wanted to kind of represent 911. So thank you for your time.
So just to make it clear, you'd like to be able to not have the aerial image required?
I would like to have both. I think having an aerial image would certainly provide more situational awareness and allow us more of an insight, but also having the ability to remove that layer of the map so that I could just see the schematic of the building.
Okay.
Would definitely be my recommendation from a 911 perspective. And being able to manipulate the map, knowing what is true north is helpful, but what's even more helpful is being able to situate a map so that if my officer tells me I'm making entry to the front, I can orient that map in a way that I'm looking at the building in the exact same way that he or she would be approaching that building, so that I'm not in a moment of stress trying to decide, well, do they need to turn left or are they looking this way? Being able to manipulate that map would help 911 in an immensely stressful situation. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for
you.
your service. 911 is, man, there's a lot on those folks, and we need to support them more. We appreciate all that they do for public safety. Okay. So I've heard a few concerns. Committee members, I want to lean on all of your expertise with public safety and your institutional knowledge and experience. So let's discuss some of the things we need to do with Senate Bill 406.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to see my board lighting up now, if I could. Representative Vance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I go back to training. It's all about training at the end of the day. If these people receive these maps, and I'll be the first to tell you, a 911 operator is the most important person in law enforcement, in my opinion, because y'all can solve more, y'all tell us more, you guide us, you're our guides. But I think having a modicum of training on something of this nature, which would standardize it for the state of Georgia, would be helpful in that regard. I understand what you're saying about rotating it around so you can see certain things, and I think many places already have that ability. This would only enhance, and a school doesn't have to buy this. I mean, at the end of the day, a school doesn't have to buy it. But I've seen so many maps, and had to make one myself that I had to submit to GEMA, which I wasn't real comfortable with, but it got me over the finish line and did that. You know, I checked off that box. I wasn't happy with it because I didn't like the mapping system that we had that was based on an architect's rendering of what we were looking at. Something like this gives you a much better idea, and through 30 minutes of training on how to look at this thing, and for officers, how to look at what they would be given in their cars and so forth, that they could familiarize themselves with prior to getting that call, doing that, because again, it falls back to your training. So I support this concept because we need some standardized version on how to react to these things other than a loose architectural drawing that may change next week, or not having anything in flying blind. So I am in support of this, but I do think there will have to be training when and if a school goes to this concept. And I don't think that'll take an enormous amount of time. You can do it over one shift meeting, if you will, and do it that way. And we all know law enforcement, as a law enforcement officer of 50 years, you play with stuff to get familiar with it. Am I right, Mr. Eddie? You play with things. You get a new gadget and you play with it to try to get mastery of it. So when and if that kind of situation occurs, you're operating on automatic pilot, if you will. So I am in support of some kind of standardization for this, and I think this is an excellent start. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Representative Burkheiser.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just hate for us to remove the grid part, because the example that he gave, I mean, I followed you. I was there in the room with you, and like if without the grid, if you said for the ambulance to meet you on the field on the back side of the gym, on the left side. Well, the left side is different if you're coming from the road on the right than you are on the road on the left. I'm not trained in any of this, but within seconds, I was following you. I knew exactly where you were. And I just don't know how you could miss the detailed direction of be it G2. And I've, hadn't seen this map 5 minutes before you presented it to me, and I was there in the room with you. So I would like to see us leave it in.
Okay. Well, thank you. Representative Ridley.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'd just piggyback on Chairman Werkheiser's comment. The grid system's easy, and in these situations, better have more information than not enough. So as like Representative Vance was saying, this program's already out there. You can manipulate the data, take off the aerial views or whatever you need to do. So in some situations, you need the grid and some don't. But I think it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Okay. All right. I defer to the wisdom of the committee. Let's talk about one other situation. I believe we wanted to be able to manipulate the aerial image away and have a structural image. Is that doable?
I'm going to ask Steve.
Yes, sir. You could take, obviously depending on the software a agency has, you could take strip imagery away. A lot of agencies are going to have good aerial imagery already. Oh, sorry.
Come up to the podium if you don't mind.
So the trick with aerial imagery is it's obviously only as good as how often you fly imagery. One county may fly aerial imagery every year, and they may have an accurate image. One county might not do that for a few years. So that's the issue when you just throw floor plans on the base layer you have. You don't know how old that imagery is. However, if it was my company and I was working with that particular 911 director and that was her ask, I would provide her a layered file that she could strip that off should she want to. So there's absolutely some customization to Representative Vance's point. This is not a one-size-fits-all solution. There's different opinions on maps. There's different stylistic opinions. But at the end of the day, you could remove that imagery or keep it on there. And the same thing with the grid at the end of the day if you wanted to. So,
okay, thank you. Let's talk about the 3-day turnaround time also. We need to discuss that. That was a request from the agency.
Yes, sir. So from my perspective, I see no issues with once the updates are made, a 3-day turnaround at all. I think what I want to make sure I'm clear, though, is I'm working with a lot of schools. They have a lot going on, and if you expect them to be able to gather all the changes that have happened at a school in 3 days, and then those changes to get made, and then those get redisseminated, I think that would be highly unrealistic, and I don't think that's what the director was saying either. I think he was saying once changes have been collected and been made, to make sure that there was a time window associated with that getting distributed out to the public safety community, and I don't see any issue with that whatsoever. So,
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Director Stallings, would you please come back to the podium here, because I want to make sure that we can appease your request as much as humanly possible.
Thank you, sir.
Did we get the language in this bill that will allow you to manipulate as the young lady presented?
Yes, sir, I believe so. The language that we had.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, sir. I'm comfortable with that as long as we can have that manipulation.
Point that out to the chair, because he's.
That was on line 34.
Okay, yeah.
The ability to remove the aerial image and have interactive capabilities. Examples, reposition and otherwise manipulate. As I mentioned earlier, not everybody goes.
Yeah, that's not in there.
South.
That's not line 34.
No, those were the edits that we had asked for on that line.
Okay.
Make sure you have a current LC. Thank you. This was changed afterwards. I apologize. It was going to be. Let me find it again. My apologies.
It's okay. This should have been in subcommittee yesterday, but we had numerous committee members that had pressing matters, and we appreciate the patience of the full committee to help.
Thank you.
Work this out, because we want this to be right. Yeah.
It was going to be. It would be 35 on this one. Be oriented true north. Be overlaid. Yes, sir. Be overlaid with an aerial image with the ability. Our ask was we add the ability to remove the aerial image and have interactive capabilities. That was our request there. So that you could strip the aerial image and actually see a layout of the interior of the school. And then that it be manipulated so that, as mentioned, if someone says, I'm entering from the front of the building, which way do I need to go, left or right? That the 911 operator has the ability, like they do in their maps, to turn these imageries, that it's not always just guaranteed a due north layout.
Do you have language written right there that we can
Yes, sir,
give
I
the
do.
lead council and she could make a,
I do.
and we could do an amendment?
That's basically what you said. It could be manipulated. I know.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry. No, she's got it.
Representative Townsend, do you see a problem with that?
We were just talking about that, Mr. Chairman. As long as it can be turned,
Any georeference layer can get turned around,
Okay.
whether or not the layer itself is oriented north, sir.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, thank you.
you can sit down if you want. That way you sit down.
Got one more question here. Representative Evans, you have something you'd like to? Representative Evans?
Oh, excuse me.
You have, okay, thank you, thank you.
If you speak, just speak.
We're gonna pause here for just 1 second. Jenna, do you have some language there?
Line 35, it'll read, be oriented true north, be overlaid on an aerial image which is capable of being removed or manipulated, and then you guys need to decide on the XY. You're gonna keep that, or that,
Which is capable of,
being removed or manipulated.
Definitely agreeable.
okay, all right, and let's go, let's also discuss the 3 days. How do you want to, do you have some language that you'd like to put in there once requested upon?
Yeah, I would say, on line 46 at the end, put, so within 3 days of any updates. So basically provides updates,
What's that?
school mapping data, rest of that within 3 days of any updates.
If we can be specific, something like once to 3 days is input into the maps. That way, once it's in the maps and the software company knows they need to change it, then that's fine. But everything's got to be done before they get it.
We
You
would
wanna
be
say it
agreeable too, sir, if I may, that once the vendor has been notified of a change, they have a 3-day turnaround.
Go ahead.
The only concern with that is when there's a large renovation, we're talking like the school's being gutted, or there's a big thing, that there can be some back and forth with the school, and there should be, to make sure you get it right. So I would say, my recommendation, what's realistic for a school is once changes, vendors updated the maps, they have 3 days to then disseminate that out to the public safety community. That makes sense to me. Just knowing that, some changes can be small. They could be, an AED gets moved, but some changes can be pretty significant when we talk about school renovations. And trying to get a school and a vendor together to approve those changes and get it all up to date, 3 days, especially across a large district, is probably not a realistic timeline. However, I don't disagree with the vendor being held to a timeline when it comes to, after the updates have been made, making sure that public safety has access to those maps. There's no disagreement there.
So maybe we could say, once architectural and structural changes have been made?
I would say, yes, sir. Once the maps have been updated, you could say structurally, but it's also in labeling of the rooms and things like that.
Okay.
But once updates have been made, a 3-day, however you want it articulated, but
Okay.
the maps must be disseminated out to the public safety community that serves that school within 3 days.
Okay.
One of the conversations, sir, that was had in the subcommittee was that a typical school takes 3 to 5 months for a turnaround. Is a school or school district?
A school district. So you've got to imagine one school can be easy to update, but when you're trying to get a whole school district, especially at the end of the school year, and trying to collect the changes that have happened over a year, that can be a complicated process. So it's highly dependent on the ability of the school to be able to kind of collect their changes, and the vendor to be able to make sure the school does what they're supposed to do and collects their changes too.
Jenna, are you clear on that? No? Okay. We'll pause here just one moment, please. Okay. I want to get all this clear before we ask for a motion and go forward.
Yes, sir, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
And just to let you know, appreciate Jim and 911 weighing in the entire time and helping out. They've done a lot to help out.
Okay. Okay, I believe we've got those amendments that are going to be ready to go here in just a moment. What would be the will of this committee?
Motion to pass, sir.
Okay, there's a motion to do pass. Okay, that's Senate Bill 406, LC 394381S, substitute to Senate Bill 406. All right, at this time, we're going to have a couple of amendments put on the bill. Would anyone like to make a motion to amend the bill?
Second.
Representative Mathis, you have an amendment you want to put on the bill? Yes?
You said you were making an amendment that we had for the grid and the other?
Yes. And you want to approve that amendment? Okay, let's let council make that first amendment dealing with the mapping.
On line 35, it'll read be oriented true north, be overlaid on an aerial image capable of being removed or manipulated, and contain a grid with X and Y coordinates.
Okay, is that amenable to your motion? Okay, is there a second for that? Okay, all those in favor of that amendment, will you please say aye? Aye. All those opposed? Okay, all right. And there's one more amendment that needs to be made with respect to, just one second. Representative Sains.
To make a motion, is it appropriate time to make the motion, Mr. Chair?
Let's go back to that amendment. What was your motion?
Sorry, to make the amendment. A motion to amend line 52 and add after, or replacing the period, putting a comma, and then adding, and such agency shall be prohibited from disclosing or transmitting school mapping data to the general public.
Legislative Council, are you okay with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So that's been made in the form of an amendment, and a motion's been made.
Second.
Okay, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so that amendment is on. And then the third amendment to the bill, and I'll defer to Legislative Council for that with regards to the 3 days.
On line 36, after agencies, at the end of the line, put insert, and within 3 days of any updates when significant updates have been made.
Line 46?
Sorry, 46, yes.
46, okay. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve that amendment?
Motion.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay. Any further discussion before we go? Okay. Now, the approval of the bill as amended.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed? Okay. Bill passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee.
Thank you. Thank you to the members of the committee for hanging in there with us on this one. We got Senators Cowsert and Senator Strickland here with us. Senator Strickland, I think there's going to be some changes that are going to be needed to kind of clean yours up. Is it okay if you go last? Is that okay with you? Senator Kaiser, you ready to go? Ready to go. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Appreciate it. Director Stallings, thank you for being with us.
I'll be right back.
Okay. No, let Bill. Senator Kaiser, if you would present us Senate Bill 490.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This will probably be one of the simpler bills you deal with today. It addresses fleeing or attempting to elude a police officer.
Yes, sir.
And all the bill does is increase the penalties. The current structure does not make it a felony until your fourth offense. And that is a problem, particularly in the metro areas in Atlanta, where some police departments have no chase policies.
Right.
You know, partly because of the danger that's caused to the public if there's a high-speed chase in a heavy traffic area. But the criminals out there are taking advantage of it now, and they are just at will fleeing from law enforcement, lawful stops. The current scheme, let's say, or punishment is a misdemeanor on a first offense, a misdemeanor again on a second offense with a little more teeth to it, and then on a third offense it's a high and aggravated misdemeanor, and finally only a fourth offense results in a felony charge. What we do is take out one of those tiers in this bill, and we make even a first offense be a high and aggravated misdemeanor.
As it should be.
$1,000 to $5,000 fine, 30 days to 12 months in jail. On a second offense, it's also going to be a high and aggravated misdemeanor, which is it not currently. Fine goes up $2,500 to $5,000 and 90 days to 12 months in jail. And now under this revised statute, a third offense will be a felony, and it'll be a $5,000 to $10,000 fine and 1 to 10 years punishment. That punishment is the same as it is for a fourth offense now. We just took out the third tier, and we made the first and second offenses high and aggravated instead of just simple misdemeanors. Everything else is the same. Now, I should point out that there's an important part of the bill that does not change, and it's on lines 66 at the bottom of page 3 down through 81. That under certain circumstances, it's going to be a felony even if it's your first offense, basically. If you're going more than 20 miles over the speed limit, if there is a collision with another vehicle or a pedestrian,
Absolutely.
or if you cause an accident by, say, running somebody off the road but you don't make contact with them, if you flee in traffic conditions that put the general public at risk of serious injury, or if you violate specific code sections like reckless driving, DUI, et cetera. So that should give you some comfort that for these most serious offenses, they're felonies even on a first offense. But anything else, it's this three-tiered schedule that we've imposed here. So I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman. It's just tightening the rules and the punishment up for these people that are irresponsible and are fleeing from police.
Colonel Hitchens.
I just appreciate the fact that you're aware of this and you're bringing some type of legislation forward. You know, as the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety for many years, I was just astounded at how many high-speed chases they get in. And I saw some statistics the other day here in Atlanta for this criminal interdiction unit, the ones that come in on weekends here to supplement the Atlanta Police Department. They've had 800, the state patrol's had 800 high-speed chases in the last year. And people who've never been involved, you know, I've been in a multitude of them, and they're horribly, horribly dangerous. Not just to the public, to the person that you're chasing and to the individual officer who's chasing them. And I receive conversations pretty much on a daily basis from some of the people in our house that we ought to discontinue that. That is too dangerous. You know, and it's the chicken or the egg. If nobody chases, everybody runs away and gets away, and you can't arrest anybody. But we have left it up to the prerogative, and I've been gone for 12 years, but to the prerogative of the individual officer. There are guidelines in there about when and why you should stop it. But I know of 2 specific cases where they stopped the chase. They just gave up, and the people wrecked subsequently down the road, and in one case killed somebody, and the other case killed themselves. Because just because you turn off the blue lights and stop doesn't mean they're going to stop. They think somebody's ready to go ahead, and somebody's going to get them up there, so they may continue on. And it really got some good coverage when finally some of the videotapes were allowed in the U.S. Supreme Court.
Wow.
Case down in Noonan. From the state of Georgia, and it's the first time the Supreme Court's ever allowed videotape to be done in the U.S. Supreme Court. And the court found for the police officers, because they were sued because the people had gotten hurt, that the perpetrator actually hurt, but they were suing the police officer because they had to deep pocket. So I really appreciate this. It does a world of good for the law enforcement community and society overall. I mean, this is a real problem in the metro areas. I saw one the other day in a videotape in Savannah where they were running 140 miles an hour. Went all the way through town, went around the circle, around the loop, and came back, and right through the downtown area, through all the traffic lights, running 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. So something needs to be done to stop it. And I think
this will help.
I think you may have an answer here. Okay. Because in the past, there hasn't been real punishment. I mean.
Okay. Thank you, Colonel. Number 25, that's Representative Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I like this bill also.
Thank you.
It's growing in the number of speeding, racing, things like this have been going on. Does this affect, if somebody has committed a felony, it doesn't matter if the officer has seen them. If they are just eluding them when they've been told to stop, it would apply. He doesn't have to have seen them do something prior.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Okay, also, if I could follow up, is there anything in this that's going to make sure that a district attorney is going to follow suit and pursue these charges?
No, there's not. But kind of back to your first point, the officer has to have given either a visual or an audible signal, like turn on their sirens or their lights, and they could do it by hand or by voice. Sometimes they have the speaker, but if you get a command from law enforcement to stop, then you've got to stop, and this is only an official vehicle, not unmarked vehicle. So there's no question these people trying to get away, they know it's law enforcement and they know they've been asked to stop. And when they still disregard that, we just need more respect for our law enforcement to allow them to enforce these traffic laws.
Thank you. Next step
Thank
is
you.
to make sure that they pursue it in court.
Agreed.
And Senator, you got lucky when you got it in the Public Safety Committee and not in Judiciary. So.
Well, I have a kind of a friendly audience over here on this side for sure with their experience.
All right, number 17, Representative Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for
Representative.
bringing this. Yes, and I wanted to just know, I'm really glad to hear these stories and of this great need. But do you have any data on this? And was this request made by?
The request was made by Georgia State Patrol and
Okay.
Metro Atlanta law enforcement.
Okay, that's good to know about
I
the
do not
request.
have data, although we just heard some pretty impressive stats there. And I'm not certain how much data is kept on this, but it is recognized as a growing problem.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right. Back to Colonel Hitchens.
All the data is kept on a daily basis, and it's easily retrievable for any time period or that you want to look at, and for all sections of the state. So, and it's primarily, it happens everywhere, but it's primarily in the metro areas.
And I'd like to remind the committee a couple of years, 3 years ago now, for the last couple of years, the Department of Public Safety, Colonel Wright, and then Colonel Hitchens had provided an update of some of those statistics from that squad that comes up and works around the metro area to supplement APD, and those statistics were staggering when you look at what they're having to deal with and the chases. I mean, there were several each and every night that they were here. Representative Vance.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. We need to hear a little testimony. Is there anyone here? This has not been in subcommittee, so we need to put this in and be heard. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak to this piece of legislation before we call for a vote? Anyone out there? Okay. All right. Any further discussion from the committee? Okay. There's been a motion made and a second to pass Senate Bill 490, working off LC 3942S 6S. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, like sign. Okay. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. And I hadn't asked anybody in particular to carry the bill yet. I don't think. Do you need me to designate somebody, or just is that up to you?
Colonel Hitchens, you want to carry that?
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Senator, the only request I have from you is just make sure and work on those House bills over there when you get back across over there. Thank you. Senator Strickland. Last but certainly not least.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a committee, Senate Bill 371. The LC I show is 460910S. Is that what y'all have?
We're passing it out as we speak.
Okay. If you'll, I know it's late. If you'll stick with me just for a second, I want to tell you a quick story as where this bill came from, and then tell you, as this bill continues, as you see, with the new LC to be worked on, what we're trying to accomplish. In July of last year, July 15, 2023, in my home county of Henry and Hampton, there was a gentleman that had severe mental health issues that started walking down a quiet subdivision street, shooting random people. He ended up killing 4 people. He went on the run, and over the next 24 hours, everyone was locked down in the area as police, sheriffs, state patrol all worked together trying to find this guy. And it turns out Corporal Daniel Patsiadli, who the bill's named after, found him at a place in Clayton County, engaged him with 2 other officers, and he started shooting back at them. And Daniel Patsiadli was severely injured, and 2 other officers are also shot in the line of duty. The individual actually was killed as well when they returned fire. And after that, Daniel Patsiadli ended up returning to work about a month ago. He got better, but he immediately went into the workers' comp world. And as an officer, he quickly realized that he was getting, just like anybody else in workers' comp, 66% of his salary. And in the workers' comp world, as you know, you get that percentage of your salary while you're trying to recover and get back to work. And for law enforcement officials in particular, not only getting 66% of your salary, but they also rely on other jobs most of the time, other part-time jobs to pay bills, support their families, as a lot of y'all know personally. And the sheriff of Henry County, Sheriff Reginald Scandrett, called me and called my colleague, Senator Emmanuel Jones, represent Henry County together, and said, y'all need to fix this. We're holding another fundraiser. It's the second time he had done this for somebody, to raise money to help supplement Corporal Patsiadli's pay. And he said there ought to be a way to backfill that money for those people that are shot in the line of duty while engaging someone in particular, should still get their full salary while they're trying to recover. And so we promised him that, and we being Senator Jones and myself, that we would try to solve this problem. And we filed Senate Bill 371. The bill's been through a lot, as you see with another LC here. What we discovered along the way is that there's already a state indemnification fund that exists by law that DOAS administers, that individuals like Corporal Patsiadli could have taken advantage of. But apparently people didn't know about it. And so our bill, again, gone through several versions, what you see in front of you is attempting to create automatic notice to those that would be eligible for this, of this fund. So someone like Corporal Patsiadli, who enters the workers' comp world, would immediately be told, okay, here's workers' comp, but separately, here's this other fund that you also can apply to. In the work on this, originally we also tried to work on who's eligible for that fund. We ran into some constitutional issues. That fund was actually set up with a constitutional amendment years ago. And so after the bill passed the Senate, working with DOAS, working with Chairman Benson of the Workers' Comp Board, we have put together a bill, the substitute you have in front of you, that we think is workable, that provides the way that the Workers' Comp Board will provide the notice to this individual of their potential eligibility. Then you would separately go to the DOAS to apply for those funds. It also would set up a provision, as you see in the draft, that would have law enforcement agencies providing notice as well to individuals that may be eligible for this fund to make sure that they can go take advantage of this. We named the bill after Corporal Potziadli. He came to the Senate floor and we passed this bill. And the neatest thing about it to me is he's never going to take advantage of this. He was already better. He was already back at work by the time the bill was passed. We hope he never gets a situation where he could ever take advantage of this. But he wanted to make sure that the next person in line would know that there was hope for them. And while we hope that no one will qualify for this, I think right now there's probably not a person in our state that would qualify for this fund based on what's written in this bill. But what I was told time and time again from law enforcement officers and working on this bill is stuff like this that helps improve our morale. Knowing this is out there, knowing when I'm trying to raise a family that I won't get in a situation where I'm only going to get 66% of my income suddenly, plus really a lot less based on the side jobs, gives me more peace of mind for me and my family as well. And so that's the bill, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I appreciate your patience with me. I've been giving you updates as we go as I try to get this right. I wanted to try to get this bill done this year, but also wanted a bill that worked. It worked in workers' comp world. It also worked with DOAS, and I think we've accomplished that with the draft in front of you, and also with continued help from ledge counselors, some proposed amendments. I got this draft about an hour ago. Okay. There's a few more amendments we may ask the committee to make to get this cleaned up a little bit more too.
Okay. I want to recognize Chairman Werkheiser. This is expertise. He's an expert in this subject matter from as far as I can tell. So, Chairman Werkheiser.
Well, thanks to Speaker Ralston, and more importantly, because the gentleman left the House, a vacancy became available for Chairman of Industry and Labor. So I know more about workers' comp than I ever want to know. But I was, and as you as attorney, I've always told, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. So I'm going to ask you the question that I've been asked in the halls, because one of the grand bargains, as you know, of workers' comp world is exclusive remedy, meaning if you get a payment, then if you cannot sue the party. So I already know the answer to that, but I'm going to let you explain that to the committee.
Yeah, so this, and that was the question you asked me a minute ago, this bill does not in any way change how workers' comp works. And if you are to get a settlement in workers' comp, we've actually added lines in the bill, lines 57 through 60, that again confirms, as it exists now, the identification fund sits over here, and there's current state law that says that fund can be used to complete your salary, to get the other 37% of your salary, 36% if you do my math, of your salary, and 34%, right? And that stays separate. If you go apply to that fund, it has no impact on workers' comp. It does not in any way limit your ability to do workers' comp. They're two completely separate things.
Representative Cummings. Okay, I got you. Let's see, Representative Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would this have any effect on any liability suits if auto accidents or something else were out there? Would they still have the right to pursue those remedies?
They would. My understanding is it would have no impact whatsoever on any other civil remedies. And again, it's the law. We didn't change the law as it sits. We couldn't do that without a constitutional amendment when it comes to eligibility for the indemnification fund. It sits separately, and so it would have no impact. An officer applying for that fund would have no impact on their ability to seek other remedies they currently could seek by law.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We do have some cleanup language that we need. Representative Hitchens.
Well, I've been gone for 13 years, but I served 12 years on the State Indemnification Commission, and very obviously in our agency, we probably had a weekly workman's comp from something. So I was fairly familiar with how it worked. But I never, we only addressed as a committee or a council, whether somebody was killed in the line of duty or permanently disabled. I don't know whether in-house DOAS was providing these funds, but I never knew of any of our people that were getting them. And I thought I was pretty up to date on these types of things because we dealt with them on a regular basis. So do you know if that's recent legislation to pay the difference?
It was not. I don't remember what year it passed, Colonel, but it was older legislation. I think it was done the year the constitutional amendment was done to set up the fund, if I remember right. And you're not the only one. The law currently says it's temporary or permanent disability. And
Right.
it has guidelines. Their guidelines are also different than workers' comp because one of my drafts of my bill had it where workers' comp can make the determination for you and not have to go through two different systems in essence. That wasn't going to work because DOAS is set up a little bit differently than what the qualifications are versus workers' comp. But I think it's been around for a while. And if nothing else, this bill has provided notice of this. And one of the things I may be looking to do if I get to come back next year is dive more into the eligibility side and the constitutional side. We'd have more time to do that to make sure that more officers that find themselves in a situation, it's not just law enforcement, it's also firefighters as well, could take advantage of that money.
Well, Identification Commission is all public safety. EMTs, I was shocked one time to learn that the most people that have gotten killed in the line of duty are Georgia Highway DOT workers. Right. But to the other part, we always gave our people a choice. They could go workman's comp or they could take sick and annual leave. And most of them, because of the loss of pay, opted to use their sick time and their annual time until it ran out, and right. So that they would get full pay. But that's a pretty good hit too, and you don't get any additional sick time. Then if you get sick afterwards, you lose your pay or you lose your vacation or both. So it's thanks for doing this. It'd be a great assistance.
Absolutely. Representative Taylor, you had a question.
Just a follow-up question, if I could. Is it in the budget? Have we got a fiscal note, or what do we need to do to make sure that it's?
It is not. So the fund is already funded by us, and we don't know what the impact will be because, frankly, we hope no one would qualify for this, but we don't know how many people will. But also, I will say the current version you see in front of you doesn't increase those that would qualify. It provides more notice. You could get more people that would go take advantage of this that haven't in the past. And so, but to be honest with you, we asked that question on our side. There's no way I can say for sure what it'll cost because we don't know how many people will qualify for this in the future.
But we do have a bucket of money somewheres right now that if somebody claimed tomorrow, you would be able to fund it.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is not a policy shift. This is just encouraging those to
take advantage
of what's there.
That's right.
Okay. We do have 28. Representative Mathis.
Yeah, one question, Senator Strickland. If they they're getting a workman's comp 6%, this would bring them up to 100% of their salary. Now, just say they stayed on workman's comp longer than anticipated. How does that?
Yeah, the fund actually has a 1-year limit on it.
1 year limit.
That's right. So beyond 1 year, this fund no longer applies, is my understanding of it.
So then they'd go back if they were still on workman's comp. So this would just supplement for a year.
Right, for a year. That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. We do have a couple of things we need to change on this bill. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me make sure we get these lined up before I ask for a motion to move the bill. So we need to take out section 4 and 5. Is that correct?
I believe so. 4 and 5 was some old cleanup language from another draft. Okay. And I agree with Ledge Council. I don't believe it's now necessary in this bill.
All right. Jenna, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so basically we're adding a defined term of eligible police officer in section 4 and 5, which is also a law enforcement officer, and we're talking about the fund that's currently there. So if we're not going to amend anything with the funds relating to eligible police officers, we don't need that definition there anymore. So again, I think it was just sort of kept in there from previous iterations. So those two sections can be removed, and then just we'll change the title of the bill to reflect those changes.
Okay. And then on the second one will be change the language to conform?
Yeah, in the title.
Okay. All right. And then the third one is
Yeah, so on line 27 and thereof with, due to a direct interaction with the criminal suspect, arrestee, or inmate, just to cover anyone that might, say, get injured in a jail or, to work suspect.
Okay.
They haven't been convicted yet.
So changing lines 27 and line 48. Okay. And repeat that language there.
Due to a direct interaction with a criminal suspect, arrestee, or inmate.
Okay. Is the committee clear on that? Okay. All right. So at this time, okay, one more question. Number 16, Representative Cummings.
Yes, I just wanted to know, based on that change, does it also include if the officer is injured while helping somebody, not necessarily dealing with the criminal suspect? Because that happens all the time too. You're on the side of the road, you still have your flashers on, and you get hit and injured. So does it help somebody that's helping somebody in an emergency?
Can the author of the bill answer that question?
So this language we're talking about is for direction for the workers' comp board and also for local law enforcement. And so to be up to their interpretation, frankly, our goal is to provide more notice about this fund in general, because there are other people outside this definition that would qualify for this fund. And so my hope is that, and what Ledge Council is offering is slightly broader language than I have. I hope that what we see is at the end of the day, people are made aware of the fund, period, hopefully, and that it's going to make it where more people that would qualify will be able to go apply for that. And so it just depends on how it's interpreted. This is, again, a bill that's probably going to be a first step, and let this fund get out there and let us start with this notice, and then we probably want to come back and look at other ways to get notice and potentially look at the fund itself as well.
Okay. Representative Evans, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Who funds this fund? The Georgia State Indemnification Fund?
It's a state fund. It's under DOAS.
And it does have dollars in it?
It does.
Is it a line item appropriation for general in our budget, or?
That I don't know.
Colonel Hitchens, you want to educate us a little bit?
Money each year. It is a line item, and I don't know what subcommittee it goes through, but it's a significant amount of money.
Several $1 million.
Yes.
But just to clarify, you're saying you didn't know about it?
Oh, I knew about that.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that they paid for people that were injured in the line of duty while they were out sick.
Okay.
They've always paid for people who were killed in the line of duty or who were permanently
Okay.
disabled.
It's the same fund. It's just,
Yeah, I just never knew that anybody was, and maybe nobody was drawing it. They just had that trooper last year that got shot over in DeKalb County, and he was over a year before he was able to come back to work. And
right.
he's still looking maybe at having to take a disability retirement, because, DOS could have done that in-house, because I carried the bill last year for DOS that essentially does away with the Indemnification Commission as such. Now DOS does it internally. Because of COVID, there were so many cases that they couldn't determine whether or not they were related to COVID or otherwise. So the commission just became inept, and they opted to do away with it. So.
And to DOAS's credit, I've been getting to know them with this bill, and they mention again how they actually go and speak to law enforcement agencies. They go to seminars trying to make people aware of this fund, and so they're committed to doing more to make sure people know this is there too.
All right, thank you. All right, that clears the board off. Do I have a motion? Okay, motion is made and a second to do pass Senate Bill 371, working off a substitute in Senate Bill 371, working off of LC 460910S. Okay, at this time, we will talk about amendments to the bill. I'd like to request that we take out and remove section 4 and 5. There's a motion. Is there a second for that? Second. Okay. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. The second one would be to change the language to conform. And Legislative Council, will you state that for us, please? Okay, so removing the definitions on line 8 through 10.
Lines 8 through 10, we're removing the words to amend chapter 9 all the way down through line 10 is the word definition.
Okay. Someone like to make that motion? Is there a second to strike that language? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Okay. That's on. And then the third one would be to change suspects in lines 27 and 48.
So moved.
Okay. Legislative Council, would you state that, please?
So lines 27 through 48, that entire line is going to be replaced with due to a direct interaction with a criminal suspect, arrestee, or inmate.
Okay. There was a motion. Is there a second to that? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, like sign. Okay. Now the bill. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Motion passes, or bill passes, and
Thank you all
On
for
the
your
rules.
help with this. Representative Clint Crow asked to carry it in the House.
okay. All right.
You can't win them all.
But hey, before we
Thank you.
before we adjourn, members of the committee, I just want to say what a pleasure it's been to serve as your chairman over the last 4 years. I really enjoyed working with each and every one of you. I respect and appreciate the knowledge, institutional knowledge, and worldly knowledge that you bring to this committee and you brought to this committee. It's my desire that the best days of this committee are still in front of it. And I appreciate your service and your friendship. And thank you for being with us today. We have one bill that we're not going to hear today. That bill has been put off. But again, committee members, thank you so very much. I also want to thank Abby Day here for her service to me as a chairman and keeping me in line and pointed in the right direction. If she's not number one, she's in the top two. Also to Legislative Counsel Jenna Doldy, thank you for helping me and helping me understand legislation. I've always said I'm just a country undertaker, but you have kind of helped me understand the legislative process much more and helped me with legislation, and I am eternally grateful for your service and your knowledge. To my intern today, Tim, thank you for all you've done, and to my admin, Vanessa. If she's not number one, she's in the top two. So I certainly appreciate our staff that's helped us here. So without any further business of this committee, we stand adjourned.
It's not enough for us.